Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you,
Hi.
Mr. Secretary, for joining us today. I don't know if you saw the news this morning that the U.S. economy saw a 1.4% decline in Q1 GDP growth of this year. Definitely, supply chain issues and inflation are the primary drivers of the decline that we've seen, but the pandemic policies of this administration that include massive trillion-dollar spending packages and economic restrictions like the ones we saw in my home state of Virginia under Democratic-led administrations started this ball rolling. $190 billion in COVID relief funds has been distributed by your department to be spent on preparedness and learning loss. We've all seen the stories of how some of these funds have been spent. For example, in a Whitewater, Wisconsin school district, the board voted to allocate almost 80% of their $2 million to build synthetic turf fields for the football team. An Iowa school district spent $100,000 of COVID relief money to renovate the weight room and add new floors. And now the district has recently reported more students interested in football. That's great, but the East Lyme, Connecticut school district spent $175,000 to address drainage problems on the baseball field. Pulaski County, Kentucky school district spent $1 million in COVID relief dollars on resurfacing 2 outdoor tracks. In March of 2021, the Government Accountability Office reported that the U.S. Department of Education system for tracking data was inadequate. Can you report on how you provide oversight for these federal investments to avoid this type of waste, and how many school districts are truly prepared for the future? What % of funding was spent on learning loss of students, because we saw that across the nation? And how is your agency using data to help understand the impact of these harmful school closures that we saw?
Thank you, Mr. Cline, for the question. And I agree wholeheartedly with you that we must ensure that these dollars are being used to address learning loss, the mental health needs, and it's something that we take very seriously at the department. As a matter of fact, the GAO report that you referenced, we instituted new protocols for oversight because we felt that the data collection was poor, and we had to fix that mess. There were several messes we had to fix. With regard to ARP accountability, I visited more than 100 sites, and the first question that I ask is, how is the ARP money being used? We're trying to lift best practices. We've had dozens of webinars with state chiefs, superintendents. I've spoken to hundreds of superintendents, visited their sites to make sure that we're very clear. Addressing learning loss or missed instruction is critical. Mental health needs of our students is critical, and making sure that our schools could be safely reopened. We're doing that. We're going to continue to do that. And a recent report from Future Ed reported that the projections of spending will go $30 billion toward academic recovery, which is exactly what you were asking for. $26 billion of the $130 billion in the K-12 space would go towards staffing, which include mental health support. $26 billion for infrastructure. And I have to say, some of the examples of what I've seen in my visits include deferred maintenance in buildings where air quality was really poor, so infrastructure is being fixed with the use of the American Rescue Plan. Schools are open today. We went from 46% of the schools open when President Biden took office, 99% open today because of the American Rescue Plan and their ability to get their schools open safely.
I think that one of the things that the American Rescue Plan also resulted in was the inflation that we're seeing today. The department just announced steps to further exacerbate this problem by dealing with student loan forgiveness. The federal student aid estimates that the changes you're proposing will result in an immediate debt cancellation for at least 40,000 borrowers under the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program. More than 3.6 million borrowers will also receive at least 3 years of additional credit toward income drive repayment forgiveness. Can you tell me how the department plans to pay for the planning, implementation, and execution of these proposed forgiveness programs?
Thank you. We recognize that one of the things we had to fix when we came in was the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program. It was enacted in 2007, was to take effect in 2017, and there was a 98% denial rate for those who qualified for it. So only 16,000 borrowers received forgiveness in the program. What we ended up doing was revisiting that program, fixing it, and as you mentioned, at least 40,000 borrowers were added to the list of borrowers who received loan forgiveness with the income-driven repayment changes. We are working really hard at FSA to build up systems of support for our students to make sure that they have the information, and we're processing their applications as quickly as possible.
Thank you. Yield back.
Congresswoman Bustos.